was only a week ago Chris Bowen warned us about the climate change Armageddon coming our way if we don't race to renewables. And now he's sounded the doomsday kazoo over in New York at the United Nations, taking his Armageddon tour global.
Climate denial is still with us, but it takes new forms. All too hardism, this is all too hard. Or no one else is doing enough. Why should we do this when the rest of the world isn't moving? And that's an easy message and narrative for the deniers and delayers to communicate.
I mean, who let this guy out on the world stage, seriously? Well, what we can't deny, Chris Bowen, is that Australia emits just 1% of greenhouse gas emissions. 1%. Yet we are the ones apparently doing the heavy lifting. And for what? I mean, it's not going to change the weather, and it's certainly not going to do anything for our energy bills. Yet Chris Bowen is out there peddling an uncosted 2035 emissions reduction target of 62 to 70% with absolutely no clue how much it will cost you.
Australia has just presented our nationally determined contribution to the UNFCCC of a cut in emissions by 2035 of 62 to 70%. A target we regard as ambitious but also achievable. Hard work, not automatic, won't be easy, but achievable, which is the key thing.
Well, here's the thing. We've been warned time and time again by experts and AEMO that we will not reach our emissions reduction targets as they are via this experiment of transmission lines, giant wind turbines, green hydrogen, solar farms and batteries. Not one expert has said we can achieve our targets as they are. And Labor's been told it can't even get to 43% by 2030, but has had some sort of bizarre light bulb moment and thought to increase it to 62 to 70% by 2035. And look, I have lost count at the amount of renewables projects that have gone bust or have been delayed in the last few months alone across the country. But Bowen is out there selling it as a remarkable opportunity.
Now, this is a remarkable opportunity to transform consumers into prosumers, producers and consumers of energy all at the same time. And this is part of the story that we can tell that yes, there are challenges and headwinds and delays, but there are remarkable opportunities. There are remarkable opportunities to put consumers, to put individuals in charge for the first time.
How many times can you say remarkable? Well, the only thing remarkable about it is that Labor has managed to make electricity more expensive in this country, even though we were told it would be cheaper under renewables, and at the same time has made the grid less reliable. Now that is remarkable. Bowen then went on to show us why he actually has no clue about energy bills.
In the old days, we used to just get an energy bill and have no choice but to pay it. That is rapidly changing, certainly in my country.
We don't have to pay it? We used to get an energy bill and had no choice but to pay it, and that's changing? Now, look, I don't know about you, but I certainly don't get an imaginary bill every quarter that magically pays itself. But look, I digress. Here was Bowen explaining why you no longer have to pay your electricity bills and why it's rapidly changing.
Country with the highest rooftop solar penetration in the world, with more than a third of Australian houses having solar panels on the roof, more than have a backyard swimming pool, and many Australian houses have a backyard swimming pool.
Again, who let this guy on the world stage, seriously? And the reality is Labor is doubling down on climate targets while we are shutting down coal plants with no plan B for energy generation to keep the lights on in this country. And the cost will inevitably be passed on to us as consumers. Now, of course, what we care about is what it means for our power bills, because ever since Labor came into power, your bills have gone up by up to $1,000. So under the new 2035 target, Labor reckons in 10 years' time, you'll cut your losses. Its modelling says expert analysis by the Australian Energy Market Commission projects residential electricity prices will fall by 13% and average household energy costs will fall by about 20% or around $1,000 a year over the next decade under a coordinated renewables rollout. And thanks to the Climate Change Authority for that one. So in 10 years' time, when Anthony Albanese is sipping pina coladas at the Copacabana, your power bills may or may not go down by $1,000. But weren't they meant to have gone down already?
Reducing power prices by $275.
Reducing power prices by $275.
By 2025, $275 a year.
$275 a year.
We'll get power prices down by $275 a year.
$275, the average house, lower in 2025 than today.
My word is my bond. My word is my bond. My word is my bond.
Yeah, and we're meant to believe our bills will be $1,000 better off in a decade. Yet Bowen is pushing ahead with steadfast determination.
We have to keep going. We now have 53 months to 2030. That is not long. That will go very fast. And then we have to drive on to 2035 and to 2050 and net zero.
And to end his climate change Armageddon tour, Bowen gave us all a parting message.
Well, my friends, Australia will be there all the way on this journey.
Great. A magic carpet ride journey none of us signed up for, and a journey that's sending us broken backwards every day.
So there you are. I mean, there was an ad a few years ago. My next guest might recall it. It was when people were throwing rubbish out on the highways and stuff. And the thing was, it said, "Don't be a tosser." So we should send that same message to Chris Bowen, not to be a tosser also. Before we get into our next guest, which we're going to talk about the unreliables, but they are reliably killing the farmland. We often hear that cattle and sheep, they're killing the planet. They're killing the planet, and they're not. It's a huge lie. It's one of the, according to one guy we'll play in a second, it's the biggest lie in the world because they are not killing the planet. And he will prove it. Cam, if you could play biggest lie.
The biggest lie in the world right now is that cows are killing the planet. At the core of that lie is how methane is calculated, and in the next few minutes I'm going to take you through the full carbon cycle for my dairy cows, from the air and back to the air. All the carbon that enters my dairy cows starts in the air, and I have organised this fog as a nice visual representation of that carbon. Let's take 10 carbon atoms from the air and follow their journey through one of my dairy cows. The grass in my field uses photosynthesis. That's a hard word to say. Photosynthesis. Grass uses photosynthesis to pull carbon out of the air and store it as energy in the form of carbohydrates and proteins. So when my cows come in here in a few weeks to graze this field, they will eat the grass and they will take up the carbon. Sorry if I'm explaining this like you're stupid, but none of the public question any of this stuff. One of the 10 carbon atoms will leave as meat and milk, which is then consumed as food by us humans, and we emit the carbon as respiration. Another 2 of the carbon atoms are emitted as respiration by the cow, also not counted as an emission. The remaining 7 carbon atoms are digested in the rumen of the cow by bacteria. The bacteria inside the cow's rumen takes the remaining 7 carbon atoms and converts them to methane through the bacteria's version of respiration. So respiration from the human, not counted as an emission. Respiration from the cow, not counted as an emission. Respiration from the rumen, counted as an emission. But here's the thing, no matter how the carbon leaves the cow, it has all started in the same place, which is the air. This next bit is where climate scientists like to gaslight us farmers and say that methane is not the same as CO2. So let's continue to track our 7 carbon atoms which have left our cow as methane. They have entered the atmosphere again, and them 7 methane atoms have 96 times the global warming potential of 7 carbon atoms. However, over the next 12 years, them 7 methane molecules that entered the atmosphere will break down into CO2 and water, completing our cycle. What this means is, if you have a stable number of animals, like this farm has for the last 12 years, as you emit the 7 methane molecules, 7 more that you emitted a decade earlier have just broken down back to carbon to be reabsorbed by the grass. So the net effect of the methane molecules emitted by my cows on global warming is zero. Factually, zero. And yet, in all the carbon calculations, them methane molecules are accounting for over 70% of my farm's emissions.
So there you are on the Country Telegraph. That's a very interesting calculation, which is spot on. And we do not need Chris Bowen and the like telling us just BS. I mean, Councillor Jasmin Jones is Mayor of Yass Valley Council, and I'm sure she understands what they would describe Chris Bowen as doing, and it's not particularly nice. And what he is emitting, he's not emitting gas; he's emitting the stuff that cows emit. And that's probably what I would think. I think Chris Bowen is terrible. I think the government's terrible. Don't care whether it's state or federal. I think they have lost the plot when it comes to the farmer and climate change and all that sort of stuff. Jasmin, thanks for joining us. Can you just tell me the impact the proposed renewables are having for your area? And it just we played your clip from Sky News the other day, and it looks like your concerns are basically falling on deaf ears in Canberra.
Yes, Mike, we've got quite the fight on our hands at the moment. If all of the projects go ahead, that are proposed for Yass Valley, we're looking at close to 1,000 turbines. And the cumulative impact on that is so significant that just last night at our council meeting, we had a submission from our retired firefighters and zone commanders and aerial firefighters that say there is grave risk to human life because of this unprecedented level of proposed projects for our area. And so I'll be writing to the Prime Minister and the Premier and the Planning Minister and the Energy Minister, letting them know that Yass Valley Council has called for the immediate halt on the rollout of renewables in our region, and they will be responsible for all souls in Yass Valley if we lose a single person to a bushfire because of the inability for us to suppress the bushfire on these bushfire behaviour days of over 40, or otherwise known as a total fire ban day. If we can't get fixed wing aircraft in to help with the firefighting because of the cluster formation, the height and the sheer volume of turbines proposed for our area.
Just because we also broadcast to the farming community in the UK, and they may not be familiar with Yass, and you talk about bushfires, and they do have fires in the UK too, but not as many as we do have here. Could you just describe the topography, or the geography of Yass and its surrounds?
Okay, so Yass Valley is a series of beautiful, rich valleys and hills made in the iconic poems of Banjo Paterson. And this area, when a bushfire takes hold, because it's a combination of bush and then grass and bush and then grass, it can rage with speed and fury across the landscape. And I'd take your viewers back to a time in 2013, the Cobbler Road fire in Bookham, Yass Valley, travelled 37 kilometres in just a few short hours, razed to the ground 14,000 hectares, killed 15,000 head of lamb stock and horses. Remarkably, no human life was lost, but our farming community was devastated by that blaze. And this is the exact area where these big multinational corporations are trying to land a foothold, and we're fighting them tooth and nail. And you know, we've already done some heavy lifting. We've got 6 renewable projects in Yass Valley, including 2 solar panel projects with 500,000 panels each. We've got 4 wind turbine projects already in our area, with another 7 proposed. Enough is enough.
Have they actually started plonking these windmills up yet, or are they still just in the process of putting down the foundations?
Okay, so we already have 4 projects that are already approved, and some are under construction, some are constructed, but the 7 that are proposed have come at us from absolute nowhere, although deals were done with landowners dating back 2 years. So it's really dividing communities here, because some farmers, a handful, some that don't even live on the properties anymore and have got $1 million properties in Sydney, will be reaping hundreds of millions of dollars, while their neighbour receives nothing. And more to the point, doesn't want it and doesn't deserve it. The setbacks for these projects were designed, I think, 10 years ago, when the turbines were only 18 metres tall. Now they're 260 metres, and in its madness, the New South Wales government has taken the industry's advice, not the communities, not the farmers, and put the setbacks down to 1.5 kilometres less if they can buy off the neighbours, when they used to be 4 kilometres. Now, where's the logic in that? There's none.
What about let's just go to your local government, so I can't get into you guys because you're the head of it. But let's look at the state government and federal government. What's their response been? Do they really, I'm talking to other farmers in other parts of Australia, government doesn't really care a whole lot. And the push is not only from state, it's also from federal. And you saw that Chris Bowen, he's rolling up his sleeves and telling everybody that Australia is going to lead the way, which basically is our destruction. Is state and federal government taking any notice? Because they could stop this if they wanted to.
I think they need to realise that they're under the hard deck right now, and it seems illogical that a local government mayor has to tell them you're on the wrong track. But I can assure you, our community has been doing the heavy lifting on these renewables, and to what end? We should be seeing a significant result if that's the case. And yet we've said, we've done our heavy lifting. We're at saturation point here in Yass Valley, so we don't want any more, because we have other things of beauty and value here. We're a cool climate wine region of excellence. We're a high growth corridor for population between Yass and the ACT border. And we've got 81% prime agricultural land for our graziers. So we're already putting the food and fibre on the table. We've also got the space sector anchored here in beautiful village of Browning. This is iconic landscape that is made famous in the poems of Banjo Paterson. So it's criminal that this rollout is happening with disregard to the productivity and the wealth of our country from other industries that have been here and other economies, such as agriculture. And we know that Australia has a significant role to play in feeding the world as the population increases. And what a noble role that is. And we're going to have to see some support for regional Australia to make that happen. And what's happening with this renewable rollout is the exact opposite. It's undermining our community. We've been in drought since May 24, so our farmers are already emotionally and mentally exhausted. Physically, they've been working double their usual hours, hand feeding stock to get through a very tough winter. And so when we ask the state government and the federal government to pause, reconsider the impacts, have a look at what you value and what we're going to value in the years ahead, long after these turbines are broken and derelict in our landscape. What do we really want to build Australia on? And we can't compete with the labour force of many other countries, but what we can produce is cheap electricity. We are putting ourselves out of the international market for a whole range of products. And this country was born on the back of the sheep, and this is the area that supports the metro areas of Australia with food and fibre. It's time to take notice of what we're saying, and we're saying enough is enough.
Here's something for you to think about, because we look after the UK, it's the same thread there as with Australia. government does, especially federal government, they don't really like farmers anymore, do they?
Well, I think when you think about there's only around 130,000 farmers in Australia, and we have handed them the grave responsibility of providing for every single one of our population. I think it's important that we respect them and we value them and we start listening to them.
But I'm not disagreeing with you. But if you look at governments both in the UK and Australia, I do not see any sort of semblance of care. And being from the land myself, and government has always been a bit slow on the uptake when it comes to the farmer on the land. But now we have a scenario that's total destruction of communities and of people's livelihoods. And what are they doing? Not much.
I think the productivity inquiry is a bit of an eye opener, because in that you see that farmers are pretty much considered a problem, something that needs to get out of the way of the renewables rollout, when actually the productivity of our farmers should be their highest priority, because it's on that you're going to get your food on the plate, and it's on that you're going to get the fibre for what you wear, and it's quite frightening to see the disconnect between the metropolitan politicians and what's actually required in this country to move us forward, to put us back into a position of strength.
What's your timeline? I mean, because we're talking to people, as said, all over Australia, even in WA off the coast. They're going to put in thousands of wind turbines, and the timeline is not all that far away before they start doing this, and it will destroy that part of the world. What's the timeline for this? Because if they start building putting these turbines in, or windmills as Donald calls them, it's most likely, in many cases, the death knell for your area, because you're going to have the communities just decimated. Some are getting rich, but they're not part of the community. They're in Sydney, as you mentioned. So what happens to the community? What's your timeline? Is it impending? Is it like this, you're in this tunnel? Is the light a train coming towards you, or is the light some sort of hope?
Well, with that analogy, Mike, our community is certainly up ahead of the train, and we've triggered the switch, and we want this train out of our community. So yeah, it is coming at us like a freight train. Just at Yass Valley Council's last meeting last night, we had to have several mayoral minutes to combat several projects, to put on the table the risk to our community from the bushfire threat that some deputised retired firefighters put together for us. We had to reject the early DA scoping creep works of Squadron Energy's project for the Bookham Wind Farm that was put to council as mere test pit and borehole investigations, geotechnical investigations, where this is actually the spores of a $2 billion project, which should be assessed by the state government. But that came in our front door and was, we were forced to assess that. Well, you can imagine what we did with that. We've rejected that for the threat that it is to our community, to the biodiversity of our farming areas, to have these trucks coming, opening farm gates through multiple properties, sluicing the hills and escarpment to test for where they can actually plonk these turbines. And even the documentation had Squadron Energy labelled all over it. So to call this nothing to do with a state significant project makes me gag. And it's so upsetting to see our community treated as such. All of those projects should be fully assessed from the beginning to the end and not allowed to creep in. So as for the timeline, we're at ground zero for net zero right here in Yass Valley, and we're putting up the fight of our life. So all the support from Australia is welcome. Please write to the Premier, please write to the Prime Minister to say that community deserves better. We're providing the food and fibre. We've already done heavy lifting with 6 significant projects. There's another 12 significant projects proposed for our area. And within the next 5 years, if all of these or even some of these get through, Yass Valley won't be the same. It won't be the beautiful, iconic valley of cool climate wine excellence, escarpments filled with just the most poetic landscape of agriculture, home to the Ngunnawal community, and their totem is the female wedge-tailed eagle. It is a disgrace that these projects are being allowed, because there won't be the wedge-tailed eagle in Yass Valley if all of these projects get up. They'll be the first to be tagged and bagged, and terribly, they're being taken off. They're taken off country, and that's really something that is upsetting for not only our Indigenous residents here, our Ngunnawal people, but also for everyone here in Yass Valley.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's disgusting, and I think after watching Chris Bowen and Elbow at the United Nations, good luck on trying to get rid of these things. I mean, they're full of it. You know, Chris Bowen, he's risen from 4'2" to 4'3", and he's taking on the world. I mean, truly, and whether you people agree with climate change or not. One, we don't have to be this. There is no climate crisis. But secondly, it was still based on a lie, and there's so many scientists disagree with it. Just go to a geologist; they'll look at Earth's timeline. They go through it, and you'll see that this is just truly a figment of someone's terrible imagination. But it's not stopping them. They're going to go ahead and do what they can. Look at the EVs. Would you like your house burnt down? Buy an EV. So it's terrible. As a journo, you must be, you could write some juicy stuff at the moment, but you can't because you're the mayor.
I'm too busy advocating for my community, Mike. But setting aside all of the climate rhetoric, the practicalities of the turbine's presence, just on the fact that they're large, tall structures in a bushfire-prone area, makes them such a significant hazard that whether you prescribe to the net zero verse book or not, their very presence in Yass Valley is such a risk that it's untenable to imagine putting them here. And the Prime Minister down is responsible for all souls from here on in if they continue to roll them out here in Yass Valley, because our most experienced firefighters, with over 100 years experience combined, that peer-reviewed this submission on how bushfire suppression could actually work or not work, more to the point, if all of these projects or even some of them roll out, is frightening. And this is before we even add what you mentioned, the EVs, in terms of the best storage systems. So there's a proposal to put 186 best storage units 2 kilometres from the township of Yass Valley. It's called Derringullen, and it's in the state planning portal right now. If that gets up, and that's probably, $500 million to $1 billion project just sitting there, if that gets up, the potential for that to be a risk to not only our township, but also for anyone heading from Melbourne to Sydney on the Hume Highway or on the XBT with the rail line just next door, and right next to a service centre too with that huge fuel load, what could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, in our cool climate wine region of excellence, which is the jewel in the crown of the Canberra District wine region, its heart, Murray and Bateman, there's a regionally significant best proposal proposed for an area right next door to internationally acclaimed wineries. Just one fire from that project could cause smoke taint in the grapes, and our vignerons, all 50 of them, could lose their harvest. This is insanity. In one hand, the state government gives us a $2 million grant to create our winery trail, and in the other, it's allowing the overriding of our local environment plan and our development control plan that normally would say hey, this is not appropriate for this area. But with the New South Wales state planning tool as it is, and the appetite, that the insatiable appetite that the state government and the federal government have for renewables at any cost, despite risk to human life, despite the risk to existing established economies such as agriculture, viticulture, tourism, and even the space industry in Yass. I wash my hands of these governments if they don't sit up and listen. And when I've gone to the Planning Minister, Paul Scully, sat in his office and said, these projects can't go ahead because they will decimate our community for these reasons, the next day we have the Premier saying, we can't even wait a day to stop and look. Well, if you can't wait a day, then you're headed for trouble. There's no question about it.
I totally agree. I'll be interested to see what happens, because when you mention wineries, knowing how the pollies are, if that's in some sort of threat, they're going to, we can't have our winery supply or our wine supply curtailed. We need to make sure that we're safe there, so they'll move it further in. But I think the whole thing, this whole renewable, all the projects, the interconnector and the turbines and the solar farms, it doesn't augur well for the future for those on the land, whether you're a farmer or a grower or just living in the community townships or whatever. We need to actually start caring about the farmer, and at the moment it doesn't seem to be what government is doing, caring about the farmer. The nice thing is, whether it's UK or Australia, the general population, once they know about it, they're in like Flynn, as they would say. So I think there is still hope. I don't know how much hope, but I do pray for all the farmers and for your beautiful area. And let's hope there's not 1,000 turbines.
Thank you, Mike. And there is a connection with the UK. So the Wind Prospect, which is the proponent for the Ben Dineen proposal, which is close to 100 turbines for our beautiful village of Browning, its parent company is actually in voluntary management in the UK, apparently owes its creditors the equivalent of around $16 million Australian. And this is the company that's riding roughshod over our community, and it's very distressing to see that even with all the projects that it's allegedly associated with in Australia, it's still not going to meet its management plans back in the UK. So it looks like our government has got itself involved in a company that's in not great shape. Yet it's being bankrolled, and there's other companies involved such as Infratil and Mint Renewables behind this project, which are obviously well heeled. Compare that with our community volunteer action groups and a local rural council, and we're losing so much productivity and time with our families fighting this. But by God, we're going to fight, because our area is worth it, and we don't want to see this devastation. And if we can stop it in Yass Valley, it can be stopped anywhere.
Yeah, totally agree. If somebody wants to find out more about what's happening or just about your beautiful valley, how do they do that?
Okay, so if you'd like to see what the latest from what's happening with Yass Valley, you can see the Yass Valley Council meeting last night over YouTube and just look up Yass Valley Council. You can look at our meeting agendas and our mayoral minutes there. And if you want to learn more about our cool climate wine region and us generally, just visit Yass Valley, the website, and you'll see what a great destination we are.
Absolutely brilliant. We must do more of these. I'd love to find out what's happening. And it will be a continuing saga, hopefully not of heartbreak. Councillor Jasmin Jones, Mayor of Yass Valley Council, thank you very much. This is the Country Telegraph.
Did you know they plan to build over 3,000 wind turbines on Queensland's Great Dividing Range? Over 3,700 kilometres of new haulage roads will carve through old growth forest. Destroying forests for industrial renewables makes no sense. It doesn't have to be this way. The intact biodiverse ranges of Queensland are no place for renewables. Take 2 minutes to learn the truth about the destruction they cause. Go to rainforestreserves.org.au.
Okay, we sort of zip around the world trying to find how farmers have diversified and are doing really, really well. One of those is Helen Browning Organics. Before we get into having a chat with Tim Finney, I'd like to just play this clip. This is just a short clip from their website, but it's very cute and I like it, so that's why I'm playing it. Cam, if you could play Helen Browning's, please.
Come meet the adorable piggies with me and find out what makes Helen Browning's organic farm so special. At Helen Browning's, the pigs live a truly happy life. Here, it's all about giving them a life worth living. The piglets stay with their mothers for up to 12 weeks at a time, a big difference from most farms, where they're weaned at just 3 weeks. Staying longer with their moms means less stress and a much better start to their life. The pigs roam freely in the open fields, feeding on a natural diet of grains, fruits, and leftover vegetables from the farm. Nothing goes to waste here. All the leftover fruits and veggies that would otherwise go to landfill are given to the pigs as part of a reciprocal process that nourishes them while reducing waste. And what's truly amazing is how the animals are cared for. The farm never uses antibiotics thanks to the low-stress environment and the pig's natural diet. Mob stocking means that animals are rotated to fresh fields regularly, which keeps them healthy and the land thriving. Every step of the farming here is geared towards animal welfare. From letting the pigs roam freely to feeding them on the freshest, most nutritious food, Helen Browning's is all about the quality of life and the care and attention that leads to healthier pigs and, in turn, higher quality meat for us with richer flavour and better nutritional value like higher omega-3s. Helen's transition to organic farming is also about getting animals back on the land in a way that respects nature. The farm's open-plan fields are a great example. They live in harmony with the environment, helping regenerate the soil and enhance biodiversity. It's all just a part of a bigger picture of sustainability, care, and creating a farm where animals can truly thrive. And I'm just so excited and happy for everyone to come and visit Helen Browning's farm.
It's just amazing. Tim Finney is the MD, Managing Director of Helen Browning's Organics and partner of Helen Browning. The farm has been at Eastbrook Farm for 67 years and has been organic since, I think, 1986. Now, their philosophy is to grow the best quality crops and animals whilst making space for nature too. Tim, thanks for joining us. I have to say, first up, I like those little baby pigs. I've seen lots of videos with little piglets. They're great for a pet for about 18 months, and after that, you need to vacate the house. Well, it's a pity they grow so big.
I think you'll find really that you need to vacate the house after about 6 months, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. At 6 months here, our pigs will weigh about 120 kilos, 110 to 120 kilos. And to be honest, that takes up quite a lot of living space if you've got more than one of them in the house. We reared 2 of them in the house just before COVID, 2019, because their mother died, and 2 of them were left as complete orphans, didn't manage to find another mother, and which most of them do when that unfortunate sort of thing happens. And we reared them in the house, and it was huge fun for about 4 months. And after that, we put them back with the rest of the herd. It was time that they went back to their more natural life. So, yeah, I would suggest 6 months is the maximum. 4 months is ideal. And they are very cute and very intelligent and very clean.
They are. We used to have pigs when I was on the. I lived on a orchard, and we had 3 pigs there. It was very.
That is heaven for a pig, an orchard. Heaven.
They were very happy, but they were very big too.
Yeah.
Nobody messed with those pigs.
Well, what I really want to do here as we evolve, and we've evolved quite slowly but quite interestingly over the last 40 or 50 years that we've been doing this, I want to start charging our customers to take pigs for a walk. I'm trying to devise a lead for pigs. We have so much space here by UK standards, and we have so much fruit and so much wasted fruit, particularly from the hedgerows, that we should be taking pigs for a walk, and people should be paying me £25 for the privilege of being taken for a walk by a pig.
That's fantastic. Maybe a saddle.
A saddle? No, I think that's just pushing it a bit far. I think what people need to do is walk a bit more, and I think with the idea of walking with the pig on the end of a lead, being basically told where to go by the pig, is a much more idea of fun.
It says on the bio that you went organic about 1986.
We did.
Am I right there? Was that the right date or earlier? Or
it's sort of 85, 86. It's slightly lost in the history, in the midst of time, but I'm sure if you looked back at the paperwork, Helen, before I knew her, decided to go down the organic route in '85 and started the process in '85. And it took most of the farm took about 4 or 5 years from memory to move into organic status. One particular field that had been very, very, very heavily doused in a particular herbicide took an extra 3 or 4 years for it to be clean enough to be classed as organic.
It's organic stuff really interests me. I think another one is regen farming, which is starting to interest me too. Do you think we're sort of bordering on the stage that we're letting go of, because we used a lot of chemicals on the orchard, so we're going to go more not let Mother Nature take its course because it needs some sort of guidance, but to do away with the idea of chemical after chemical after chemical.
Well, you are right in that respect. We are moving away. We are moving away very, very, very slowly. In fact, there's a sort of polarization, really, as far as I can see, in the agricultural, in the food producing industry that fundamentally is what we're part of. And, some of us, an increasing number of us, but growing slowly, are getting rid of this armory, as you talk about. Others are going I would suggest, almost the opposite way, and they have decided that maximum food production is their goal, minimizing labor costs, using non-natural methods, if I can put it that way, to achieve those things. So there is a polarization. You also mentioned regen there, which I think is interesting. I think that organic farming, which is in a sense the sort of purists as we are, not as individuals, but in the way we practice our business, because we're far from purists. We have a lot of fun. But I think that the rise of organic, albeit it has been quite slow, I think, has encouraged other people to go sort of 3/4 of the way down that route. So regen to me is fantastic the way it's taken off. Without organic as a sort of pioneering group of idiots, or however we describe ourselves from time to time, regen wouldn't necessarily have followed through. Regen is a much easier term for a layperson to understand and to get their heads around. And of course, it's not quite as expensive because they're still using some techniques that we wouldn't use, which probably increases their yields and reduces their costs.
I've just also noticed that you guys have a pub, Jeremy Clarkson. But you were before Jeremy Clarkson, and you're much better looking and much younger than Jeremy. But I mean, I was
Not
just
sure
thinking,
about that.
well,
Jeremy Clarkson is a very handsome man. Very handsome man.
I'm just being nice to you.
I know you are.
But see, I saw this, but you have a pub, and you are always nice to people that own pubs. But the diversification, moving from just being on the land to a pub, the challenges would have been interesting. We saw the challenges that Jeremy had. Is he pretty well spot on with his challenges that you also faced those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, he has taken it over the last. He's probably had that pub for a couple of years now, although we've only been aware of it really for the last year or 15 months. He has taken on the challenges that we took on 19 years ago, and he has multiplied them by a factor of at least 100, because he has become a tourist destination, which has its upside and has its downside, I think, from the idea of running a place like this. We took this sort of place on because when we cannot be accused of having any great strategic plan here. We've just been aware that producing food and selling sort of even organic commodity food, whether that's lorry loads of grain or tankers full of milk or fridges full of pork, is not a viable way to make a long-term living in this age. So therefore we have diversified. We were producing and adding value to pork and to beef and to little bits of milk and one or two other things for the previous 20 years before this pub effectively fell into our lap. The pub is in the middle of the village that we live in. The village is in the middle of the farm that we farm, the 2,000 acres here that we farm. And it was a shocking venue. shocking venue. I mean, we're in the county of Wiltshire, and this pub and the other pub in the village would have been competing to be the worst pub in the county. And I don't know which one would have won, but they were both bloody awful. And the owners of this pub effectively approached us to see if we'd be interested because we were food producers. And we thought, yeah, we'll do it as a sort of late life hobby. Well, 19 years later, we're still trying to work out why we did it, apart from the fact that we love doing it. And then the other pub went we went bust, and we took that on. We have a common boundary, so we smashed a hole in the boundary and turned that into a hotel. So we have a pub and a restaurant and a hotel in the middle of the farm. So we are sort of classic, as they would say in Europe more than they say in the UK, agritourism. And but we only use a very small proportion of the food from the farm to feed 500 or 600 people a week here. And just coming back to Clarkson, since we talked about Clarkson a few minutes ago, who's farming and running a pub 20 miles up the road from here, I've just said we feed 500 to 600 people a week here, which is amazing considering where we started from. He is feeding and looking after 1,000 people a day. I mean, that's how he has magnified the problem. The problems that we have are nothing compared to his. Although I do suspect he's probably making some money out of his pub, which is a struggle.
Well, yes, but at least you have somewhere to go to drown the woes of the world. Look, we got to wrap this up.
My own pub, you mean?
Yes, you could go there.
I wouldn't dream of going to my own pub to drown the woes of the world. No, I go to a bloody neighbour's pub. No, I'm not going to my own pub. If I go to my own pub, I start to worry about what's going on in the kitchen and whether the staff are working properly and whether, the floor's being cleaned. If I want to rest and relaxation, I go to a pub in another village.
Wow. Look, if somebody wants to find out more about the pub or Helen Browning Organics, how do they do that?
I'm sorry, I missed that question. I couldn't hear the first bit of it.
Okay, if somebody wants to find out more about the pub or Helen Browning Organics, how do they do that?
Well, the best thing to do is to come and see us. And to come and see us, you have to work out where we are on a very small single track lane in the middle of a very rural part of Wiltshire. Not very far from London, not very far from Bristol, not very far from Marlborough. Very well located in many respects, but you don't drive past us. You have to come and find us. And of course, the normal way of finding anything out these days is to go online and put Helen Browning's name in, and you'll come up with, 2 million references to either her pub, her farm, her sea buckthorn, her apples, her pears, her pigs, the pub, the hotel, whatever it happens to be. Or go and look at TripAdvisor, which we hate, or Google, which we love. Or something else. But there are hundreds and millions of ways of finding out about us, and it's well worth a visit. And I do extraordinary bespoke farm safaris for people in our old red Land Rover.
Because it's a Friday, because I'm a great guy, I suggest you have a beer for me tonight.
I will try and find the time.
I'm not going to buy you one, but you can have one.
I'll try to find the time.
Tim Finney from Helen Browning Organics. A great conversation. I would like to do more of these because it's a lot of fun. And I think you need to come out of your shell a bit too, because I think you're very shy. Not. There he is.
You. Talk to me anytime.
Tim Finney, thank you very much. Mark the Bowler, who's the hat farmer, he's been everywhere. Mark Byford, he's just been everywhere. And he knows the problems that farmers are facing right now in the UK. Mark, thanks for joining us again. How are farmers handling it right now? The inheritance tax, it's a dreadful tax. Is it starting to bite?
Hi, Mike. How you doing? Yeah, well, where we are at the moment in the UK is government's obviously got everyone on self-destruction at the moment. People are killing themselves over what's going on with the taxes. But it's fight back time. And this coming Sunday, the 28th of September in Liverpool, Farmers to Action, which is what I'm going to say is the biggest and the most successful farmers group in the country now, is taking Liverpool by storm. So they're taking 3 trailers, what they've called the trailers of truth, and they've got people to sign on the banners and say their thoughts. And there was a brilliant one on there yesterday, and it's by Gareth Wyn Jones, and it simply said, "London will starve first." And I thought that was absolutely fantastic because, at the end of the day, bureaucrats can believe their own bullshit, but the reality of the situation is that they're going to go hungry before the farmers and the country folk will. And I think that is a stark lesson that they need to learn really quickly.
In Victoria, they had in Australia, we had the Prime Minister and one of the state premiers were in Ballarat. I don't know if you see the footage, but the Prime Minister was chased by these angry farmers on tractors. Will we see a similar occurrence in Liverpool?
Wouldn't that be an interesting day out? What I will say on that, Mike, is that farmers are losing their patience with the government. The government isn't listening. Not that any government ever listens, but the ones that are simply controlled by the WEF, as ours is, are sliding us towards food starvation, and people are starting to club together. We've already seen organisations such as driver organisations, NHS staff, students, lots of different people coming together for this rally at the weekend. This isn't just about the farmers. And I would say if there's anyone watching this that is in England, try get yourself to Liverpool on Sunday, the 28th of September, because really and truthfully, if we don't put this across to the British government that they are in a way that they'll understand, we are in a very, very bad way.
I think I think there's a lot of sad things happening, not only in the UK but also Australia too. It does show you that government doesn't really care a whole lot about the farmers. If you destroy those communities and the livelihoods of those families on the land, what else do you have? There's nothing much left, is there?
No, and what's been interesting to see these trailers of truth going around the country, Mike. What they've done, they put these banners on the sides of the trailers, and they've literally gone Land's End to John O'Groats. They've done England, Wales, and Scotland, and they all merge on onto Liverpool on the 28th. Now, bear in mind that these farmers, all they want to do is produce food for the country's public, and this is one of the challenges we're having now. Is this insanity that we can't, as farmers, just go and produce food without the bullshit? And and I know, like you said, this isn't just in the UK. This is worldwide. I speak to farmers worldwide that are in the same position, and I know a lot of people think, "Oh, this is only us what's under attack." It isn't. It's the food supply chain, and the food supply chain worldwide is slowly crumbling to bits, which is obviously what they're looking to achieve. But, and what I will say is the but here, Mike. Farmers are fighting back, not just on the physical side of taking the trailers of truth around. Farmers are also starting to step out of the system to produce food, good quality food, like Tim was just talking about, and they're starting to produce that and supply direct to the public. And that's going to cut out the big boys and put a lot of people's nose out of joint.
Absolutely brilliant. Mark the Bowler hat farmer, if somebody wants to find out more about you or this get together in Liverpool. I'm being nice about this get together. We could use other words, but a charming get together to voice our opinion to the Prime Minister and his party. How do they find out about that, and how do they find out more about you?
Okay, the first one is farmerstoaction.com or .co.uk. You can go there and find out. You'll find Farmers to Action on all social media. And for myself, it's the bowlerhatfarmer.com or again, the Bowler Hat Farmer on any social media.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. I'm very excited about the outcome of this get together in Liverpool. Do you think the Prime Minister? Do you think he will turn up?
Well, he hasn't got a lot of choice. It's his own conference.
Yeah, but however, I mean, an angry farmer is not a happy creature. So anyway, just a thought. Maybe a few beers for the farmers beforehand. Not.
Maybe.
Mark, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.